Hello, everyone. No, crochet is not what we're talking about. It's Unravel the Crochet. My guest today is Frank Harjava Peter in Greece. And this is the place where we agree to disagree. Welcome to our talk. Hello, Harjava in Greece.
Good morning, René. Nice to see you again.
It's a little awkward to speak in English to you. Normally, we speak in our mother tongues, German. How is it in Greece, the weather? It's early morning, right?
Yeah, it's early morning and spring has come. The swallows have arrived. It's beautiful, beautiful sunny weather. I think I'll go for a swim today, maybe about 17, 18 degrees Celsius. Beautiful, just gorgeous. Blue skies, incredible sunsets in the evening. Nice.
You know, in my age, 18 degrees water, the sea is simply too cold. I wait until it's getting a little bit warmer. Dear guests, dear viewers, you're not here to listen to us about the sea in Greece. At this point, I very briefly want to introduce my guests, Harjava. In the Reiki community, he needs no real introduction. He is literally world famous. But I'm going to, just for some of you or for people outside our community, I'm going to have a few corner points. Harjava, and I just played a little bit. He is a few years younger than I am. He is born in 1960 in Germany. He was 18 when he left his native country. And so just imagine, 1978 that was, and went to India to live in a spiritual commune with Osho. He was there several years, went to the United States of America, where he lived for 6 years. After America, he found himself in Japan for 12 years. In 1992, he embarked on the Reiki journey. And in 1997, he released literally a game-changing book of historic value, Reiki Fire, his first of many, many books. I have just a few here. And dear viewers, you will find all the references later on our website and also in the description of the video if you want to check all that up. As a result of Reiki Fire, he started to become a much sought after teacher all over the globe. In 2002, he temporarily went back to Germany. Temporarily, that's about 7 years, when he then moved to where he is right now in Greece, together with his wife Bhakti and his 2 children. So, Harjava, I want to introduce no more of you. I rather have you talk. So without further ado, and you may want to tell the viewers a little bit why we're here today, and also how we got to talk about the topic and who you are. But first, I want to show you a small film.
Motorradfahren, das ist Freiheit. Freiheit. Mein Name bedeutet Freiheit. Ja, und Freiheit heißt für mich Freiheit, Verantwortung, Leichtigkeit, und das empfinde ich beim Motorradfahren. Das macht mir total Spaß.
This is one of the passions we share. I'm a motorbiker too, although I haven't got my bike for a while. And this little video clip was in German. So maybe you want to talk about your name and introduce yourself a little bit to my viewers, please.
All right. Okay. So my given name, Frank. Frank means free, and therefore freedom is one of my key values in life. I just love being free, but freedom doesn't mean licentious, doesn't mean that you can do whatever the hell you want, but it means to be incredibly responsible for everything that you do, everything that you think, everything that you say. Yeah? And that's kind of my motto in life. Yeah? Part of what that does for me is I love riding motorcycles. I have 2 big bikes here that I enjoy every day, yeah, and gives me this wonderful freedom. I also have a boat that I go out in the sea with, yeah, and I just love to have this incredible space because it reminds me, and the same is true for the motorcycle driving, of that incredible space in your heart, which is just empty and spacious and gives room to everything that there is. Yeah, that's what I like. Yeah, I think that's a good introduction to myself. All the other things you have already said, and they don't really matter, you know, at least not for me. Yeah, all that matters for me is the love that I have in my heart. Everything else is meaningless.
And that brings us halfway to our rather poetic subject of this is a crochet. I had to learn it from my wife because I didn't really know what a crochet was. And my viewers may wonder how we got to give our conversation this particular title. We could have also taken the Gordian knot or something like that, because when Archava and I spoke about the possibility of this very conversation, about a week ago we chatted, you, Archava, used the terminology psycho-emotional, and in that context we were talking about, in German, it is unknotting, unraveling the complexity of our personality. So give me a few words about unraveling the crochet.
Okay. So basically, in Japanese terminology, it's believed that we are made of 3 bodies. And those 3 bodies are, first of all, our physical body, the conscious part of ourselves. Then the next part is the psycho-emotional bodies. There are several. Our unconscious part. And then there is the soul, yeah, which the Japanese believe that all of us have one. And all of us have been given this soul by the gods during the pregnancy of our mom, around the 3rd or 4th month. Yeah? So all of that makes up one human being, and those 3 bodies are one. And they are one just like an orange is one. Yeah? We talked about this a few days ago, Rene, that when you look at an orange, you don't see the peel of the orange and then you see the little white membrane inside and then the fruit flesh inside and the seeds inside. It's all one. In the same way, we consider ourselves also to be one. Yeah, but we are one with all of our entanglements. And the entanglements are happening on the psycho-emotional level. And now, especially during these COVID times, I think this is the perfect chance to work on some of those entanglements and to unravel them.
Yeah, actually, when you described the Japanese model, let me call it that, it isn't all that different from other paradigms in other cultures. The approach or maybe the terminology may change somewhat, but you reminded me of the World Health Organization, which says when it describes our holistic being. It takes the physical body, the physical level of our existence, the emotional level, the mental level. We are also a social species. We have social needs and capabilities, and finally the spiritual level. So that's roughly. It's not all that different from what you said in the Japanese context, don't you think?
However you look at the human being, the truth is always the same. It doesn't matter whether you look from a Japanese point of view, from a Western point of view, from an Indian or Chinese point of view. The human is the same. Yeah, so the expression of truth might be different depending on culture and language and the climate and everything. But really, when you look deeply into things, they're all the same. In India, for example, they have a more complex idea. Yeah? They believe that there are 7 bodies. Yeah? So it's much more structured. But it's the same thing. We're just looking at the same thing from different angles.
It's amazing, and in fact, we're close to one of the things which fascinates me. I like to do this in my art talks. My guests often come from within the Reiki. Actually, they all come from within the Reiki community. Reiki is a holistic treatment. Reiki has a strong spiritual component. So to look at things a little bit from outside the bubble, I very often choose to take models and thought processes from politics or economy or things like that. And I want to, do you know what the universal basic income is?
No, I don't know.
Okay, we in Switzerland, we call it let me see, how do I do this? I had to add this here. We call it the unconditional basic income. And in fact, the idea behind it is, and Switzerland had a people's initiative 5 years ago, 6 years ago, where the people voted on the decision whether to ask the government or give the dictate to the government to implement a law in favor of this concept. And basically, the idea is to create a society where we guarantee every member who is born literally from the day 1 until the day when they die, a essential coverage, of monetary coverage, a payment which guarantees their existence. Unconditional is the key word behind it. That actually means that people don't need to work to gain it. So in this discussion, there were 2 arguments which questioned the sensibility. One was, is it financially doable? And the other one was, well, if everybody gets a salary, who is going to do the work? And this is where it becomes interesting to me and has to do with what you just said, because they made the research and they discovered the following. The majority of the people asked in the research said, of course, they would continue to work even if they had their existence guaranteed with a basic income. Then they took these same, say, 90 people and asked them in confidence between you and me, what do you think the other 89 people, what do they do? And the majority of these 90 people, that is 67 people, statistically said that they think, I will work, but not the others. And that to me is such an interesting statistics, because it somehow shows how people have a comprehension of themselves, assuming that the other is different. And you touched upon that, and very beautifully you said that we're actually under the surface all one. So share with me a little bit your thoughts, Archava, please. Why is this, in your opinion, that we get sidetracked and have so often the illusion that my species, my group, my gender, my race, myself, I am like this and everyone else is different?
All right. I think that basically people don't suffer from karma or from bad experiences, but people suffer from unawareness, yeah, from the lack of reflectiveness. So for me, this is the medicine for everything. Yeah? Always reflect back to you, whatever happens. Look back at your own heart, see what suits you, see what doesn't suit you, and then make your choices in that way. Yeah? So don't project on the others. Don't look at other people. Always point the mirror at your own face. And then you will see that inside of you and inside of the others is exactly the same thing. Yeah? There's no difference. So the reason that people get attached with their opinions and their philosophies and their meaning of things is that they are not aware and they have not created a distance between the one who is thinking and the one who is watching the thoughts. So this is for me the main problem. Yeah? And the reason for that is that there are entanglements in the psycho-emotional self. So we have gone through lots of experiences in our past, traumatic experiences. If you believe only in one life, just think of yourself. Yeah? There are so many situations in which you got hurt, in which you felt vulnerable and you got hurt. So many situations. Yeah? If you believe in multiple lives, oh my God, yeah? It's tremendous. Yeah? And all of these experiences are in the unconscious and they are the driving force in the unconscious. They make us do things that we don't want to do. Yeah? So the voices made me do it. This is the problem. This we cannot have. We must start to question everything, to reflect everything, and hopefully then be able to come to a conclusion out of the moment, out of this moment, and not out of a long forgotten past. And those of us who practice Reiki, we have the beautiful chance to work on that by working on the body and paying attention while you're working on the body. Because when you're working on the body, you're immediately working on the psycho-emotional self too, coming back to the image of that orange, because they are one. The whole package is one and they are interconnected. When I touch the body, I also touch the psycho-emotional self. When I heal the body, or not right to say that, when the body heals, yeah, also the psycho-emotional self heals. So this is one way we can work on it, by just doing our self-treatments. Yeah? And another way to do it is to work directly on the psycho-emotional level with the second degree Reiki. Yeah? So I don't want to get into more detail with that, but with this you can work on patterns, on old habits, on substance or whatever other abuse. And that's really wonderful to do, to disentangle all those little things inside that make us suffer. And we know what they are. We all do. It's so easy. You don't need a therapist. You don't need somebody very clever to tell you what it is. You know when and how you violate yourself. And it's great. So catch yourself when you see that you're violating yourself or another, immediately go and look, where does this come from? Yeah? And work on it. And that way you can starve these patterns to death if you don't feed them. Yeah? So the first thing is awareness. You must be aware of the fact that you're doing it. Yeah, that's why I said initially people don't suffer from basically from karma, but they suffer from their unawareness. So the first thing is we must be aware, we must be watchful, and then catch the patterns when they come up and work on them and not follow them.
You know, as you spoke, it reminded me of one of the what many people call a golden rule: don't do upon others what you don't want to be done to yourself. Or also, and this is in many thought. In many practices, be that spiritual practices or psychoanalysis or whatever, and the question of putting yourself in the shoes of the other, because as you said, we know what hurts us and where we do damage upon ourselves. And if we empathize with the other, that he is going through the same motion, I think that is almost like half of the solution, if not more than half of the solution.
Definitely. The lack, I think, is really that many people experience themselves as an individual, a separate individual. So it's me, and then it's you, René, you are there, I am here. This is my sweater, my house, my wife, my kids, my motorcycle, my. So I'm very focused on the ego-centeredness of the whole thing. But the moment that I go deeply into the self in meditation or in Reiki, the moment I go deeply into it, I realize that there is nothing there. It's just spaciousness. I think I remember that you've been to Africa also. I went to Africa several times, and one of the most amazing experiences for me was these vast open spaces. There's nothing, no people, no thought process anywhere. And the only thing I could think of that comes close to that silence is the silence in your own heart when you're meditating, when you're quiet. Yeah? And if you have experienced that, then you realize that this space inside is what we all share. That is the same in each and every one of us. There's no difference between my silence and your silence. How can there be? Yeah? It's the same. It's exactly the same. And once you know that sameness, then all the differences disappear and all the boundaries disappear in between people. And this is why I like Reiki so much, because when you're giving treatments or receiving treatments, that's exactly what happens. The boundaries between people just vanish. Yeah? When you touch somebody after maybe 10, 15 minutes, you don't even know anymore what is your hand and what is the body of the other, because you have melted, your energy bodies are so close together. You have melted and mingled together and you disappear. Beautiful. Yeah? And when you disappear into the other, you realize that there is no difference.
Yeah.
Yeah? Then things change.
I did a little bit of reading up on you, of course, in preparation for this conversation, and I went to your website, and I learned there why Fire Reiki is called your first game-changing and historic, very important for the Reiki community and for the development of Reiki as a whole. Why you called that book Fire Reiki? It has exactly to do with what you just said, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's how I experience it. It burns down all the separation, all the singularity, and not singularity, duality, and makes it all just one. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah? And also it burns down the what we talked about earlier, the psycho-emotional entanglements. Yeah? But we need to practice awareness. Yeah? And this is one of the things that I always say to my students when you give treatments: be as acutely aware as possible. Yeah? You hear everything, you see everything that is happening in this moment, you sense everything. Yeah? All the senses are on full alert, yeah? Not concentrated, just present. Yeah, because this is what we've got. We've got the birds singing outside. We've got the truck going by. We got the feeling in the body, the temperature, everything that is happening in this moment. And when you become aware of everything that's happening, your own breath coming in and out, then the transformation is there.
Great, Achala. We've covered quite a bit of distance already in this conversation. I have a few more thoughts and topics. They won't have space here and now, so I need to speak to you again sometime in the future. Not necessarily still this year, but finally, in our last conversation, we I stumbled across something because you mentioned Corona also as a chance. I stumbled on the commonality between Corona and chance, and that's the C at the beginning. So that's the note I made for myself in our conversation last time. And I would like the little bit of time which we still have to talk to you a little bit about this particular chance and today's time, if that is okay with you.
Yeah, wonderful. So basically, I'm a reflective kind of person. So whatever happens in my life, I look at it and I ask myself, what can I learn from this situation? Instead of struggling with what's happening and saying, no, I don't want this. No, I want it to be different. I prefer to just look at, okay, listen, we are here and we are here on earth to learn. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So might as well learn something from the situation. And one of the things that I noticed very quickly, and that started actually before Corona, is that all that is under the surface in the unconscious seems to be coming out collectively more intensely. Yeah, started with the political situation in the US that was very obvious, dividing the people into this group and that group. It was coming out with a vengeance. And with Corona, it's the same. The Corona brings out all the things that are under the surface, brings them out on the table so we can look at them. So if you're afraid, it will bring out your fear. If you are angry, it will bring out your anger. If you are discontent with the government, it will bring out that. If you have a problem with your wife, there you go. Yeah, it brings everything out for that. It's great. Yeah? Plus, now we have the time, or many of us have the time to actually do something about that and to look at it. Yeah, so the first thing is we are here to learn, so might as well learn. Yeah? And now look, whatever there is in the subconscious that needs to be understood, needs to be digested well, needs to be integrated, will come out, whether it's good in quotation marks or bad. So if it's fear, it will come out. But also if it's unethical, it will come out too. And everybody, including you and me, and all of our listeners, we will somehow try to turn this into an advantage for us, this situation. Yeah? That can be in many ways. It could be financial, it could be whatever, yeah? on any level. So Corona is a chance, and I have lots of time. I usually don't. I usually travel maybe 6 months out of the year. So now I've got lots of time that I can deal with things that I haven't been able to deal with until now, maybe some habits that I can work on, patterns that I can work on, personal stuff that I can work on. It's wonderful.
And I, of course, know that you're also writing on a book. Would you like to say a word or two, or is that the bad omen, speaking about a work of art which hasn't been released yet?
Um, um, this is a funny.
Sorry.
No. This is a funny situation. Yeah. So the whole publishing story has changed a lot over the past few years. So if you had asked me the same question 15 years ago, I would say, I'm not going to tell you the title of the book and I'm not going to tell you anything about it until it's published. Now is different, because now everybody can publish things quickly over the internet themselves, and now I'm in that same situation. So I just wrote a book, will have the title 3 dots and then is, and then 3 dots is all about being in the present, living in the present. And the word Reiki appears, I think, for the first time on page 154 or something, and only once. Yeah? So it's not about Reiki, it's about leading a happy, content life and being present, being in the moment. So that's my latest project, and I think we will have it available next week.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Unfortunately, it will take me many weeks until we release this. But by the time our viewers are seeing this, maybe the book will be already available on the market, and we will include it in the description. We're coming to an end, Archava. We used the metaphor of a knot for our conversation. We spoke about, for example, the illusion of separateness. And one other illusion which fascinated me and continues to fascinate me is how often we humans think that problems are really unsolvable and big and difficult, when sometimes it's actually very easy. And one easy way of solving many, many problems is what we're doing right now, talk to each other. And I learned a little bit of crochet from my wife yesterday. And to unravel a crochet is the simplest thing. I hope this works now. You just pull it. And you will end up unraveled. So maybe solutions are easier than we think. Thank you very much, Archava. I'm going to say to my goodbye to my viewers, and I would like you to wait for a moment still. Thank you very much, Archava.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. So, dear viewers, thank you for watching. And I hope you will join us again in 3 weeks' time. Please subscribe, and thank you.